Hi ladies, I'm back, and in this video I just wanted to share a quick personal story. Like I told you, I was gonna have a bunch of stories for you guys, and this is the second one. This is the one where I talk about the creepy guy, the one that was like super obsessed. I'm not saying that he was obsessed because of the way I look or because of this and that. I don't want you guys to think anything like that. This can happen to anyone. And the reason why I'm making this video is just to help anybody out, because there are a lot of things I wish I would have known back then, that I would have done differently, that I do know now, and that it's a little too late for me to go back and try to do those things. So well, I don't want to make this video too long, so let me get started, and I hope you guys watch the whole video. I'm sorry if it is pretty long, because it might be a little long because a lot did happen. It went on for about 2 to 3 years, and I just want to share this story with you guys, especially with what happened with the 2 journalists that were killed in Virginia. It's like you never know who you work with. You never know who's gonna wake up angry, who's gonna wake up resentful, who's gonna wake up like, hey, you know, I'm gonna take this person's life today. We have to be very cautious. That's the reason why I'm making these videos. We have to be very cautious of what we say, what we do, how we look at people. If we notice that someone's not the best as far as like their attitude, we see that someone has anger issues, if someone has social issues, we need to be aware and maybe try to help out those people, try to get help for them. Or, you know, well, for me, I wish what would have helped a lot is like having someone be there for me and just be like a witness, but like a person that was gonna stick up for me, because there were so many people that noticed and witnessed a lot of things that would happen to me, but they would not say anything because they were afraid of getting in trouble, or they were afraid of losing their job. And I think we should stick together and try to help out each other, especially if we see each other every day at a workplace. We see each other, we kind of know each other, and it would be great if we all stuck together and maybe help out one another. We see that someone that we work with is having difficulty with somebody, just to help out, you know. So let me get started with my story. So this guy that was making my life a living hell, he stressed me out completely to the point where I had to leave my job. Let me go back and tell you how I met this guy. Well, I met this guy in college. I was taking a summer course, and I just happened to notice this guy. He was very attractive. I have to give him credit for that. He was very attractive. I remember he was always around different girls, and you know, just like the school stud. And I was like, whatever, you know, he's not the type for me. And I remember that one time he came up to my sister and I, because my sister and I would go to the same school. We are twins, so we did take the same classes sometimes. So he came up to us and, oh, you know, are you twins? So it started back then, when we were in college. And then at the time my sister had a boyfriend, so it was more like, oh, who is the single one? So I just started talking to him, and he asked me for my number, and we exchanged numbers. Mind you, at the time he didn't seem like he was cuckoo, like he was crazy or anything. He seemed pretty normal, like normal as to, I didn't notice anything crazy about him. So I was like, okay, you know, he seems like a nice guy, he's very good looking, I'll give him a chance. So we did go out a few times, and I didn't like the fact that he would drink a lot. And I remember he would tell me stories when he was in the military. He would tell me stories that I was like, what? Like, is that a true story, or does he make up stories? And so I remember it kind of went from me being interested to not being interested at all, because I noticed a few things after that. Like, he just was like a loud person. He liked a lot of attention. He was very, I don't know, touchy-feely, and I didn't like that about him. And one thing I remember, we lost track of each other. I remember we stopped talking, and he would call me sometimes, and I was like, no, forget it, you know. And it got to the point where I was like, okay, I need to change my number. I don't want to have anything to do with this guy. So time passed by, and I remember graduating from college and starting a new job. So when I started this new job, maybe like a week into it, I was like, oh no. Like, I noticed him, like I saw him and he saw me. And when he saw me, it was like, oh, hey girl, where have you been? Like, how's it going? Oh my God, you work here now? And it's like, oh no, like, oh my gosh, like, no. And I remember I was like, no. And I remember going to tell my sister, guess who works at that place where I work? And she was like, who? And I told her, and she was like, oh no. And so it all started there. And I remember he was a temporary worker, I was a permanent worker. And I remember there were like certain like events that we would get dressed up for. And I remember there was one time he asked me, he's like, excuse me, he asked me, he was like, hey, what are you gonna do after? And I was like, I'm gonna go home. You know, I would just be really like upfront with him, like, hi, bye, that's it. I was never like, oh yeah, what do you want to do? No, I was in a relationship, and I totally respected my boyfriend at the time, and he's still in my life. So it was a serious relationship for me. I didn't want to mess up. I didn't want to have anything to do with anybody, you know. And I remember he asked me, he's like, what are you going to do after? And I said, well, I'm going to go home. And he was like, no, don't go home. You know, I'll take you out to dinner, and then we can go out and go dance. And I was like, no. You know, those days are over for me, so no. And then he was like, okay, you know, whatever. If you change your mind. And I was like, okay, bye. And I remember that Monday that came up after the event, he was like, where did you go? I was looking for you. And I was like, I went home. I don't have anything else to do here. And then he was like, okay. So I remember time went by, and he was just like very persistent. He would ask so many personal questions. He wanted to know everything about me. He would just show up places where I was, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, why is this guy everywhere? You know, he just wouldn't get no for an answer. And he knew that I was in a serious relationship. And I was like, oh, like, I would just leave every time I would see him, because he would just annoy me. He was like the loudest person in the room. He wanted to be noticed. He wanted everybody to be his friend, and nobody liked him because of the fact that everything that came out of his mouth wasn't very, I would say, very smart, or very, I don't know, like, people just didn't want to be around him. And I remember there was this one time, he would just want to come and hang out where I was hanging out. And I remember this one girl that I would hang out with, she was like, I don't like him. I'm not going to hang out with you if he comes around. And I said, oh, you know what? I'm sorry. Like, you can't be here because, you know, people don't want you around here. And he was like, why? You know, he took it really, really personal, and he got really upset. And I was like, well, whatever, you know. Let's be adults. And I remember there was one time when we would have to work together, and then he would just be like, oh my God, look at you. Look at that body. Look how you move. Oh, you look so good when you move. And I was like he would just get on my nerves, because to me it was like, you are so inappropriate, and so inappropriate to the point where, you know, people around us hear you and you don't care, you know. And I remember there were a few people that were like, is he talking to you like that? And I was like, yes, and you heard me, right? And you heard. And then they were like, yeah. And then so people would notice things like that about him. And there was this one lady, she would always say, hey, you know, this guy doesn't ever leave you alone, huh? And I was like, no, he's everywhere. He's literally everywhere. There were times where I would just hide out somewhere because I just didn't want to see this guy. So the story is getting too long, and to make it a little short, let me tell you the real serious stuff. So one time I remember I was walking to the parking, and he was like in his car, and he started honking. I did not even look because I knew it was him. And he came by around, and then he kept honking, and he was like, hey, get in my car. And I was like, no, you know, I'm not gonna get in your car. And then he was like, come on, get in my car. And he opened the door, and he's like, get in my car. And I was like, I'm not gonna get in your car, no. And then so he left, and then he went by another time. He went around another time, and then he was like, get in my car. And I said, I'm not gonna get in your car. So then I walked to the parking lot, and then I left, and I went somewhere else because I didn't want this guy to know where I lived. So then I called my mom, and I was like, Mom, you know, this guy wanted me to get in his car, and we worked together, but, you know, I don't want to have anything to do with him. So then that's that. And then the next day, he shows up so angry to the place where I was sitting, having my break. And then he was like, I don't understand why you didn't want to get in my car, why you don't want to talk to me, why you don't want to be my friend, why you don't want to go out with me. You go out with all these guys, but you don't go out with me. And I was like, just looking at him, and I said, are you serious? You and I are nothing. Why are you asking me all these questions like if we were a couple? I do not want to get in your car, and I want you to understand, I don't want you near me. I don't want to have anything to do with you. And there were two ladies sitting there. They overheard our conversation because he was being very loud. And then he started crying, and he said, what? You don't want to hang out with me? You don't want to be my friend? I was like, first of all, we don't hang out. Second of all, I've asked you numerous times to leave me alone, and you need to understand to leave me alone. And then he was like, all right, you want me to leave you alone? I'll leave you alone. He got up, he slammed the chair against the table, and he left. And I remember the two ladies that were sitting there, they were like, hey, are you okay? And I said, yeah, but you guys heard that. This guy is crazy, like crazy, thinking he and I had a relationship when we had nothing to do with each other. And so I went, and I've had it. I told my supervisor, hey, you know, this and this is happening. This guy asked me to get in his car, and he was very angry when I told him to leave me alone, that I don't want to have anything to do with him. I don't want him near me. I don't want him around me. And I remember the supervisor was like, well, did this happen like at work or what? And I said, well, it happened in the parking lot. And they were like, well, that's not part of the building, the work area, and so they're not responsible, so you need to go to the police station and report this. Okay, so then I was like, I've had it. This guy just seems to be everywhere I am. He just harasses me. He says sexual things about me, about my body. It needs to stop. And then I remember the supervisor was like, so-and-so? And I said, yes, so-and-so. Well, I don't want to say his name. And then, yeah, so-and-so. And he was like, no, I don't believe it. He was in the military. He wouldn't do that. And then I got so angry, you guys. I got so angry. Tears started coming down because I was so angry that the fact that he didn't believe me. He didn't believe that I told him this guy asked me to get in his car. This guy would harass me at work. This guy would just follow me. This guy would say sexual things to me that were so inappropriate. And it just bothered me, and I just started crying because he didn't believe me. He believed him. He was like, no, he's been in the military. I don't think he would do those things. And I said, yeah, well, he has. You know, why would I lie? Why would I come over here, waste my time and your time, or why would I jeopardize my job, or why would I try to do anything to jeopardize anybody? So I was like, I don't understand why you don't get it, that he did ask me to get in his car, and he was angry when I told him to leave me alone. So I do fear for my life here. This guy can come tomorrow and who knows what. He can react in a different way and be like, I don't know, like very angry. He just doesn't take no for an answer. And then so my supervisor was like, well, you need to go and file a report to the police station. So, okay, I went to the police station. You guys, this is what the police told me. Well, we can't really do much because he hasn't touched you. And I said to the police officer, they were very nice, they were very, very kind. And he said, well, I suggest you carry pepper spray because we can't do anything about it because he hasn't touched you. And I told him, so you mean something has to happen to me physically? This guy has to do something to me physically in order for you guys to do something about it? And he said, ma'am, unfortunately, that is the truth. And I was like, okay, not only was I not getting support at work from the supervisors, but the police wasn't, they didn't even take his name down. They didn't even do anything. It was more like, you need to protect yourself and that's it. You're on your own. And that's when I was like, there's no way I can't be going to work every day knowing I have to watch my back, knowing I have to watch what I do, what I say, because this guy can be anywhere. And he is like more angry than before, you know, especially knowing that I went to the supervisor, and I'm sure he knows I went to the police. So then one of the supervisors was like, oh yeah, you know, I went to talk to him and he denied everything. And I was like, well, this is everything that I'm telling you, and this is the truth. And I brought in my union rep, because every company has like a union rep. So I brought in my union rep and I told my union rep, something has to happen. The police is not willing to help. The supervisors aren't willing to help. What do you suggest I do? And then it got to the point where every day I was going to work. Okay, mind you, this guy was a temporary worker. They didn't like, this is what the supervisor told me. He's like, well, you know, he is a temporary worker. We just won't hire him anymore. And this was in writing that he told me, we just won't hire him anymore. They just wanted like to shut me up, kind of. And oh yeah, we won't hire him anymore. And the next week I see this guy. So then I brought in my union rep, my rep, and I said, you know what? This is what the supervisor told me, that they were going to hire this guy, that they were going to protect me. I'm the permanent worker. They were going to protect me, but then he's still here. I still see him. He still sees me. And who knows what's going to happen outside work, you know? What's going to happen in the parking lot? What's going to happen out there in the street? This guy could come after me. So then I remember it was like this long process, to the point where I was like, you know what? I just don't seem to be having any luck. No one seems to be helping me. And it's unfortunate that no one believed me, because this guy was in the military, because this guy protected our country. He couldn't do that. So it got to the point where, you know, I spoke with my family. I spoke with my boyfriend at the time, and he was like, I just don't want you working there anymore. What if something happens to you? What if this guy just, you know, becomes crazy one day and does something to you, like really harms you? And it got to the point where I was like, I just can't work here anymore. I didn't get any support. But this video I'm making so I can help anybody who's going through this, anyone that's been involved in sexual harassment, anyone that's being harassed, anyone that's being bullied, because even as adults we get bullied. Just to let you guys know, there are people out there that are willing to help. There are things you can do, measures you can take in order to take action. I just felt like I didn't have support of many people, so it was just left at that. And I know I could have done more, like, hey, you know, something needs to be done, like maybe record it. Maybe that's what I felt like I needed to do, to record the incidents, because I would sometimes document the incidents, but I wish I could have recorded the incidents, the stuff he would tell me, the way he would look at me, the way he would talk to me. He was like very angry and hostile sometimes. But if I can help in any way, this video can help you guys in any way. Just be very careful like I said, what you guys do, what you say, how you approach people. I just wish those ladies would have been a little more supportive with me. That's all. That they would actually were my witnesses, but when it came time to having a witness, they didn't want to say anything because they were afraid of losing their job. So if this video helps anybody, I'm doing my job. And yeah, that's all I wanted to do. Is like, don't go based on looks. You never know how people are gonna react one day. You never know what people are going to say, how they think. So yeah, I just hope you guys keep watching these videos. I hope you guys subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye.